I'd like to thank you all for coming along to this information session tonight, hear about the Primrose Park tennis court upgrade. And firstly, I would just like to go through some formalities. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and pay my respect to their ancestors and spirits past and present. I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respect to any Aboriginal persons joining us today. So what I'd like to do is introduce myself. My name's Duncan Mitchell and I'm the Director of Engineering and Property Services here at North Sydney Council, and I'm overseeing the delivery of the Primrose Park tennis court upgrade. And what I'll do is I've got a presentation that I'm going to run through in a few moments' time of the proposed upgrade, a little bit of history about it, and also the program for the upgrade as well. Just a little bit of general housekeeping. This session is being recorded and will be made available on Council's website. So please keep your eye out for that, and as registered participants tonight, we'll make sure that you get sent some correspondence with the web link to this presentation tonight. Just if I could ask, during the presentation, could you please just have your microphones on mute, which I notice you all do, so that's fantastic. And so what I'll do now is I'll begin the presentation of the Primrose Park tennis courts upgrade. Okay, so look, just some history that you might find interesting, a little bit of trivia. The land that the tennis courts were built on was land in 1891 that became made available for the Foley Point Sewerage Works. So it's all reclaimed harbour land all the way through to the retaining wall at the harbour there that was built originally as a sewerage farm or sewerage works, the first in North Sydney. The sewage treatment works closed in late 1927 and the area was dedicated as parkland to council in 1930. The original pump station, engine house for the sewage works, was constructed at the same time as the sewage farm, so in 1891. It was converted to a scout hall in 1938 to 1984. And as you would also know, that building was recently refurbished by council 2 years ago as an arts and crafts centre, where council spent considerable money upgrading that building for the arts and crafts centre and the artists that are currently housed in that building. As you can see there, that gives you a pretty good understanding of what the tennis courts are currently built on. So that shows you the original sewage works and holding tanks, all constructed of concrete, all located at the base. This photograph is taken from the top of the escarpment, all located at the base of that steep escarpment. So when the courts were built, which I'll get to in a moment, in 1985-86, all of that infrastructure that you see there was demolished and filled in, compacted down, and the tennis courts were built on top of that old sewage plant structure there. As a result, over the years, since 1985, 1986, there's been considerable settlement of that old infrastructure that the courts are built on top of. A lot of settlement was due to maybe the fill being poorly compacted, washouts, just general settlement over time. And what that's resulted in is that the existing tennis court slabs have slumped in a number of areas. They've also deflected in a number of areas. And this was caused concern for council in terms of the courts being usable, and it was also raised with us by the tennis court operator that the courts were becoming unusable. So we engaged in March 2018 a structural engineer to do a complete structural assessment of the courts. And that report was completed in June 2018, and the report confirmed council engineers' suspicions that there was significant displacement of the existing tennis court slab, approximately 300 millimetres, and this was due to the fill material the courts were constructed on being unstable and prone to washout. It was also made clear to council that there was no risk of immediate collapse or any danger of failure due to the washouts, but it was something that council had to address because the courts were becoming unusable. So at the same time, council asked for an engineering solution to the tennis court subsidence, and a number of solutions were put to council. Simple ones is just asphalting or screeding over the existing slab to make them smooth again, and get rid of some of the drainage issues, through to just putting a new slab on top of the old slab, through to the option that we agreed to go with, which was a new slab over the old slab, but perforated and supported by piles, lots of concrete piles that were then driven down into bedrock. So that supported the old slab and the new slab, with the old concrete slab, if you like, existing as a capping, so that we didn't have to, we do suspect there's contaminated fill under the courts, so that we didn't have to remove that fill. We leave the old slab in place and just simply core through it and support a new slab on top using piles. This was obviously the most expensive option, but it's an option that was the most efficient in terms of construction because we don't have to remove the old slab, and it also was the most effective solution in terms of giving us the longest useful life of the new courts, a minimum 50 years. So we're not coming back here in anyone's lifetime in the near future. So that was the option we went with. We designed all of this up in late 2018-19, and on top of that, it was clear that not only were the court tennis slabs in dilapidated condition, but a lot of the associated infrastructure and facilities at the courts were in poor condition. I mean, these courts had not been upgraded since 1985, 1986, and they were many parts of it were falling apart. The Pro Shop is the old 1985-86 Pro Shop. All the shelters and infrastructure was quite old. The courts had been resurfaced a number of times since that period, but a lot of the infrastructure was old and dilapidated. So we came up with a package of works that addressed everything. The problem was that we didn't have any funding for the project, and we'd estimated that it would be over $2 million to upgrade the tennis courts, but also address this structural issue that we were experiencing. So the designs, concept designs, and all the specifications and drawings sat in abeyance for approximately 12 to 18 months. And then in November 2020, council was notified they'd received a grant from the federal government of $2.1 million through the federal government's Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program. The courts was an eligible project for that program, and council in December 2020 resolved that that money should be put towards the upgrade of the Primrose Park tennis courts. Subsequently, council went to tender on early this year, and we received tenders in March. A report went then to the April 26 council meeting. The tenders, we got a lot of tender responses. The market at the moment for construction is quite weak, so we did receive a lot of tenders. I think 11 tenderers submitted submissions for this, and they were all very competitive, which was good for us because it meant that the federal government fund that we'd received would 100% cover the cost of the upgrade, the tennis court upgrade. And so that was awarded in April. Generally, the scope of works, so just as you know, completely refurbished tennis pro shop and upgraded male-female change facilities and toilets. a new outdoor seating and communal barbecue area constructed adjacent to the courts. The existing tennis court lighting will be upgraded to comply with existing lighting regulations, and the columns will be replaced with new columns of the same height and the same design. As I've mentioned, the existing concrete slab will be completely replaced with a new concrete slab supported by piles. They'll be constructed and surfaced using synthetic grass. So at the time that we were out to tender and that we were preparing the tender documents, we did a survey down at the courts for all the users. We asked the current tennis court operator to help us undertake the survey of what court surfaces that the users would like to see put back in place. And we gave 3 options. One was the existing synthetic grass option. Another one was an option called Plexi Pave, which is a concrete option. And then there is the Rolls-Royce option, Plexi Cushion, which is the ATP or Australian Tennis Pro Championship court standard, which they play ATP tournaments on. So that's your hard surface professional standard court surface for all of your US Open style tennis tournaments. Obviously that was the most expensive. Surprisingly enough, we offered that and we could have afforded that as well based on the tender prices we got. But the community and the users came back overwhelmingly. I think it was something like 96% of the responses we received said they want no change. They want existing synthetic turf. So that's what we went with. All the fencing and court infrastructure will be replaced. So that's nets, shelters, fencing. There'll be a new hit-up wall at the western end of the courts. There'll be a small children's playground installed at the courts. Drainage works undertaken all around the courts. New landscaping and paving also undertaken all around the courts and refreshed. So the program for all of this, we awarded the tender in April. We have had to do some negotiations with the current operator to have the operator relocated for the duration of the works. And the works are scheduled to commence on Monday, the 21st of June and go for approximately 9 months. So that means the courts will open, all going well, early in 2022. So that's the program. They will be closed completely for the duration of time. And in the meantime, Council has also relocated the current operator who has a current lease with Council. So we're not in a position to cancel, terminate the lease. We have to somehow honour the lease. So the current operator has agreed to be relocated to the Green Park tennis courts in Cammeray, which are only 2 courts, not 4. But at the same time, the report went to Council on the tender. A report also went to Council on the proposal to temporarily locate the tennis court operator to Green Park tennis courts, and Council agreed to that. The details of that arrangement was in the Council report at the April 26 meeting as well. So that will come into effect on the 21st of June with that operator moving up to Green Park for the duration of the works down at Primrose Park. These are just some of the artist's impressions that give you an overview. Obviously, this shows a different surface to what we are going to be putting there. So those courts will actually be green because we're putting in synthetic turf. That's an artist's impression of what Plexi Cushion would look like. Obviously, we're going to synthetic turf. That just shows you the western end and the new shelters. That shows you the hit-up wall, the proposed hit-up wall. And that shows you the sort of barbecue area outside the pro shop as well. There'll also be extensive landscaping in and around the courts. So that's the presentation. I've got a few questions, and obviously you can send your questions in as well online, and if there's any questions coming through online, I'm happy to try and answer those. So really, if there's any questions, please send them in now. I do have one question here from a registered participant for tonight, and that was, why could this business temporarily be located at one of the complexes that hires courts and not Crown land at Green Park, which contravenes the usage of this land? There aren't a lot of courts available in North Sydney, and that's been an issue for many years now, that there is not a lot of public courts. There's also really not a lot of private courts anymore, because land in North Sydney is so valuable that tennis courts are seen as a missed opportunity in terms of land development. And so the number of both public and private courts in North Sydney over the last 20 to 30 years has significantly decreased, because simply the value of the land. People see tennis courts as being valuable land to develop, obviously. The issue with moving the current operator to Green Park is that was actually an arrangement that was in place for many, many years, up to 2006, where that tennis courts down at Green Park were actually leased to an operator, fully leased as a private operation up until 2006. And that was something that had been in place for over 10 years. So it's not uncommon territory for those tennis courts at Green Park to be commercially leased. They've been commercially leased in the past, funnily enough, to the same operator that's going to be operating them. So that I hope answers that question. It is a temporary lease. Obviously, at the end of the period of time that the Primrose Park tennis courts are constructed, he will go back and stay there for the remainder of his lease, which is only a short period of time. Actually, his lease expires in March 2022, but it's been agreed that his lease will be extended, which is the reasonable thing to do, by the same period of time that the construction has taken at Primrose Park. So we just add that period of time onto his lease. Then the Green Park tennis courts will go back to, as they were normally, free public courts that there's no booking system, but free public courts that are occupied on a first in, first served basis. So I've got another question here. Could you please clarify the rule for the general public using the Green Park courts on Sunday morning between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m? I'll have to check, but the hours of operation for the Green Park courts that was agreed to by council for the operator to use was, I think, about 44 hours a week, which is significantly less than Primrose Park, which are privately operated courts through a council lease. But all I can say is that the period of time that the courts are not in operation at Green Park, they go back to general public use. It's first in, first served basis. And those times are printed up currently on the courts. So if you go down to Green Park courts, there's a notice on the courts that says what those times are. The times are also in the council report that went to council of when the operator would have use of those courts, and the times are also on our website. As I said, any other time that those courts are not operated by the current operator, it's free public time, just as they've always operated in the past, first in, first served. So if there's any other questions, I've just got another question coming in at the moment that's being printed off. We, of course, will take questions and we can post them online as well, the answers to these, but I'm hoping that I can answer most of your questions tonight. Just got another question here coming in. So again, another question about the Green Park tennis courts. How will public access be managed in the 2 to 3 hours available each day? Current rule of show up use for an hour will not work. Need to limit to half an hour in summer time. Courts are not usable in the middle of the day. So look, as I've said before, the public access to those courts outside of the hours of operation that has been agreed to by council with the operator is how it's always been used, or at least since 2006 when it went back to public use. Remember, in 2006 and prior, those courts were privately operated at Green Park. The 2 to 3 hours of operation each day, I'm not sure that's correct, but I'll check it. I think there's a little bit more than that in the mornings and afternoons and during the middle of the day. Will operate the same way. People turn up during the public hours and it's first in, first served. So really that's how it operates at the moment. It's a first in, first served basis. The public times are published on the courts and on our website. So if there's any other questions in relation to the Primrose Park Tennis Courts upgrade or Green Park, I'm happy to take any questions on how Green Park will operate. But I think you'll find in the council report and on our website, it's very clear what those hours of operation are. And as I said, unfortunately, there's no booking system for the public at those courts. So it's a first in, first serve. You just show up. And you can hop on the courts there when the operator is not in use. So it looks like we don't have any more questions at the moment. So I would like to once again thank everybody for attending this information session tonight. The presentation and the video of this will be put on our website. You've of course more than welcome to put questions in writing to council in any format you wish, email or go onto the council website, and we're happy to take any questions about Primrose Park Tennis Court upgrade. So you don't have to take tonight as being a sign-off from council. We're happy to take any questions on these projects at any time. So please, I encourage you to make sure you send questions in to council. And once again, this session, if you need to reference it, is recorded and on our website. Just keep an eye out for that in the next couple of days. So once again, thank you everyone for attending tonight. And I hope that you found the presentation useful and the information useful for tonight. So thank you very much.